Welcome to the Tower of Druaga. This legendary arcade game, released in 1984, captivated players across Japan, who pooled their knowledge together to solve its mysteries. Nearly every floor in the tower has a hidden treasure, with a hidden method for revealing it. You are given no hints as to what the reveal method is, but many of the treasures are required to make progress efficiently or to complete the game at all. It starts out simple. I need to kill 3 of the slimes on this floor to get the copper pickaxe, which lets me break down walls. By holding the action button, I can draw my sword and then walk into slimes to kill them. The treasure chest spawns at my starting position, so after I kill the slimes, I have to head back there. Once I get the chest, I can move on to the next level by collecting the key and taking it to the door. Not every treasure is necessary, and some are actually harmful, but being able to break down walls with a pickaxe is extremely useful, so you don't want to skip this one. Once I slowly make my way down to the bottom of the level, I'm going to use the pickaxe to break through the wall and take a shortcut to the key. Once your timer reaches 0, it changes to a new red countdown from 60, and dangerous enemies called will-o-wisps start spawning. This happens pretty often in the first level because of how slow you move. Fortunately, in the second level, by killing 2 black slimes, you reveal a treasure called the jet boots, which let you move at a reasonable pace. Someone actually recorded a no jet boots clear of this game, where you do not get the jet boots and you clear all 60 floors moving at this speed. I haven't watched it yet because it sounds excruciating, but I might watch it later. The black slimes have pretty much the same behavior as the green slimes, except they move more often, which makes them more dangerous because if a slime moves into you, it'll usually kill you. I'm trying to get the key now, but unfortunately a bunch of slimes are in my way, so I have to be careful about killing them. As you can see on the side of the screen, the key and the door kind of always spawn on these certain diagonal lines, but the positions where they spawn are random. I thought for a while that the character Gil had a random starting position, but the starting position on each floor is actually the location of the door from the previous floor, which kind of makes sense. The starting position is also where the treasure spawns on each floor, so that's not random either. Here to get the treasure, I have to kill one of the 2 blue knights, but I don't know which one it is, so I just have to try one, and if it doesn't work, I have to kill the other. In this case, I got lucky and it was the first one I killed. The treasure here is a healing potion, which basically acts as a temporary extra life, although you are forced to lose it on a later floor. The copper pickaxe can be used twice on each floor, but the way it works is a little strange. You can use it once before getting the treasure chest, and then once you get the treasure chest, you get one more use of it. Any more than that and it will break. This floor is the first appearance of the Mage, an enemy that teleports around the screen and shoots spells at you that instantly kill you. However, the spells can be blocked if they hit your shield. Mages and other similar enemies are very difficult to deal with at first. The trick is that if you pause on the space between 2 tiles, they won't spawn until you step back on the center of a tile. You can use this to control their spawn timing and make them easier to react to. The treasure on this floor is revealed by stepping on the door without having the key. The treasure works like this. At the start of the floor, if the key is off screen and you face the direction of the key, then a chime will play, letting you know where the key is. Its usefulness is very situational, since it's only really helpful if you spawn in the middle section of the floor. But I usually get it if it's not too much trouble to get to the door without getting the key. I took a while to kill the mage. I'm being a little overly careful around these slimes, so I'm actually starting to run out of time. Most other 1cc's I've seen seem to be around 40 to 50 minutes long, but mine is an hour long, so I think that means I must have a much slower and safer playstyle than other Druaga players. This next floor is a considerable difficulty spike when you first play, because it has 5 of those teleporting mages. What makes them especially difficult is that their spawn intervals normally are not synchronized, so if you just try to run around the map, you'll have mages spawning all over the place and shooting stuff at you constantly. The trick is that if you stand on a half tile, and you wait long enough, that when you step off the half tile, all of the mages will spawn at the same time. This spawn syncing technique makes their behavior a lot more predictable and easier to react to. Revealing the treasure requires blocking 3 spells with your shield while you are walking. Right now, I'm just spawning the mages over and over again, trying to get the required spell block safely. I moved to a new location there because I think I realized that initial corner I picked wasn't ideal. Not only can I be attacked from 2 directions, but there's not as much space for mages to spawn in front of me. Normally I would kill more mages for safety, but it took way too long to get the treasure, so I'm just rushing for the exit now. This next floor introduces sorcerers. They behave basically the same way as mages, but the spells they shoot, instead of just traveling until they hit the wall, they sometimes stop short and turn into impassable flames. This makes them more difficult to kill than mages, because the flames will often block your way, but it's also a bit safer to run around a floor with sorcerers on it, since their spells will often stop short before hitting you. You generally don't want to camp sorcerers in a dead end like you would with mages, because it's not likely to be effective in killing them, but spawn syncing is still a very useful technique for controlling the timing of their spawns. I got a little scared by that knight approaching me, so I ended up making a path around it with a pickaxe to get the key safely. The treasure is revealed by just touching the upper wall and moving downward. It's a candle that makes a ghost visible on a later floor. You can actually put the fires out if you stand really close to them and swing your sword, but you have to really plant your face in them before it will work, and you can often walk into them by accident while trying to do it, so I find it safer to just wait the fires out. I think I was being a bit overly careful on this floor though, and I ended up running the timer down again. I managed to make it to the exit though before the will-o-wisp got in my way. Stage 7 is pretty easy because there are no teleporting wizardly enemies. Right off the bat, I'm going to break my copper pickaxe against the wall, because that reveals this floor's treasure, the silver pickaxe. As explained on the side, the number of times you can use it is actually random, but if you want to be safe about it, you can only use it once before getting the treasure and twice after getting the treasure. Apparently I wasn't paying attention and I accidentally used it 3 times, so I'm lucky it didn't break. On this next floor, unfortunately, the mages are back. This time I don't care about the treasure, but it's dangerous to run around with 4 mages alive, so I'm going to spend some time trying to kill them. You may notice I'm using one of the spawn syncing positions I've labeled as more risky, because I can be attacked from 2 directions, but it's not actually that bad. Later on in the game you'll need to get used to spawn syncing in corners, so it's not that dangerous to use it on early levels as well. You'll usually reveal this stage's treasure by accident just by slashing your sword when you're away from the starting point. The treasure is a potion that increases your invisible HP value. Slimes and wizard-style enemies kill you in 1 hit, but certain other enemies, like knights, deplete your HP. But the potion only works for 1 floor, so it's completely useless here, and it would also overwrite the healing potion we got earlier. Floor 9 can be a little tricky. The treasure is once again not useful and can be ignored, but right off the bat you get attacked by a new enemy, the Mage Ghost. Ghosts don't hurt you on contact, but they can teleport through walls and they shoot spells. The strategy is to wait for them in a confined area that spans 2 tiles. Once they enter one of these 2 tile areas, they'll stop shooting and just bounce back and forth. If there's a corridor perpendicular to the 2 tile area, they might not enter your area and instead just wait outside in the corridor. In that case, you can pick them off from the side. Unfortunately, even after you kill the Mage Ghost, there's also 3 sorcerers and a new type of wizard called a Druid. The Druids shoot spells that break down walls. I'm going to the left here because I thought that the key might be to the left. but if I was paying more attention at the start, I would have noticed that the chime indicated the key is actually to my right, so I waste a bit of time here. It's difficult to actually kill the sorcerers, so instead of spawn camping them, I move around the map and I use spawn syncing just to control the timing of their attacks. If one happens to spawn in front of you though, you can kill it safely as long as there aren't others waiting to spawn during your attack. Floor 10 can be difficult because you have to block a spell from a red slime with your shield, and sometimes they just decide not to shoot at you for 2 minutes, and other times the knights wandering around the floor get in your way, so a lot of things can go wrong. Gil holds his sword in his right hand and his shield in his left hand, and when his sword is out, his shield will actually point to the left and block spells from that direction instead of the front. It takes a while to get used to, but it can actually be pretty useful. Unfortunately, I was facing right there, so my shield was pointing up instead of down, and I died. On this floor, I find that blocking the spells with your sword drawn is often a bit safer and gives you a quicker escape route, but I got a bit careless there. After a red slime moves, it'll sometimes shoot a spell in the same direction that it moved, but I think which direction it moves, how long it takes to shoot the spell, and whether it shoots a spell at all are all random, so you can get really unlucky and run down the timer sometimes. The knights also make things more difficult, because at this point in the game, fighting them is a little risky, and they can force you out of position. You can usually kill one of the knights if you need to though. I finally got the required spell block, so now I just need to get the treasure, get the key, and exit the floor. Passing through knights like that drains less of your HP than fighting them to the death, but killing a knight also gives you an HP boost. Without being able to see the HP value, it's hard to know what the right strategy is. This floor has 5 mages to kill, and the treasure isn't that interesting, so let me talk about my relationship with this game for a bit. I'd always lived in the shadow of the Tower of Druaga, with its secret design influencing countless games, which went on to influence my games. But I never played it until a little over 2 weeks ago, March 26, 2024. I downloaded the Switch Arcade Archives version of the game, and I had a pretty rough time. You move so slowly in the first level that you can lose a life just from getting bad luck with the enemy, door, or key placement. And I know how to deal with the mages effectively now, but going into it blind, Floor 5 just felt completely random and unfair. The game is most famous for its obscure treasure reveal methods, but I was struck by how difficult it is as an action game and how strong the random elements were. I didn't understand how people got so captivated by a game that, on its surface, seems so awkwardly paced and unfair. This floor marks the return of the Druids, the wall-breaking style of wizard. After dealing with the mage ghost by hiding in a 2-tile area, you need to make your way to the bottom of the stage and get a druid to appear in the bottom row to reveal the treasure. Even though my first experience with Druaga was a negative one, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I imagined what it would have been like to play this game in the arcades, watching other skilled players while you wait your turn, and sharing info. I ended up looking at replays of the game, trying to learn how to play effectively and deal with the random hazards. I managed to credit feed my way to the end of the game, using probably around 30 or 40 continues. I failed a few times along the way due to making mistakes that I couldn't recover from. It took a few days of learning and thinking about the game, but I finally fell in love with it. I'd even say I became a little bit obsessed with it. This floor is a huge pain in the ass. You have to kill all the enemies, and 2 of the enemies are sorcerers, which are hard to kill both efficiently and safely. I got lucky and managed to take out one right at the start, but sometimes you can run down the timer trying to kill them. You also have to remember to touch the door without having the key sometime before you kill the final enemy. If you accidentally pick up the key early, or if you kill all the enemies without remembering to touch the door, the treasure won't appear. I got both sorcerers now, so just need to take out the blue slimes who can shoot spells that break through walls. They're not super dangerous alone, but when they crowd together, it can be difficult to take them out. Early on in the process of learning how to 1cc this game, I'd often lose credits on this floor. I'd make mistakes on the earlier floors with the mages and stuff, and then this one would seal the deal. It's very common to run the timer red on this floor because you have to go around the whole map killing all the enemies, so you need to move quickly, but moving too quickly is dangerous. This was actually a pretty good floor 13 attempt, but my timer's still going to run a little bit into the red at the end. On this floor, we encounter the first wizard of the game. I like to call all the wizards in this game wizards, but this is the only one that's actually officially named wizard. So to avoid being confusing, I'll call these ones wizards, and the other ones wizard-style enemies. Wizards shoot spells that go through walls. Having one wizard around isn't so bad, but even just having two can be really dangerous. I do a bit of spawn sinking to try to kill it, but it doesn't work out, so eventually I just start going for the key in the exit. The treasure on this floor just appears when the timer gets low enough. It's not very useful. It's a potion that lets you kill the dragon on the next floor. If you still have the healing potion, which I lost earlier when I died, then the dragon potion will actually overwrite it, so you don't want to collect it. There's a slime blocking the exit, and it's dangerous to fight slimes when there are wizard-style enemies around, especially if the wizard-style enemy is a wizard, so I'm being very cautious here. Floor 15 is a bit tricky because of the treasure reveal condition. You have to pass through a blue knight while just starting to swing your sword. It's a little finicky to get the timing and positioning right, and if the blue knight spawns in an awkward position, it can be a huge pain. Fortunately, the blue knights spawn very close to where I start. I got a very short and easy floor 15 on this run, but at other times it can be a huge pain, such as the Will of Druaga. I just exceeded 50,000 points, so I got the 1 extra life that you get in this game. This is another floor with 5 mages, but there's also a dangerous enemy called the Mirror Knight. The Mirror Knight moves at the same speed as you, so if you didn't get the jet boots it'll be slow, but if you got the jet boots it'll be very fast. Fighting the Knight is a little bit risky, and fighting in an area where mages can potentially shoot you is outright dangerous, but sometimes the Knight will approach you and force you to react. The treasure reveal condition is to touch the left and right outer walls of the maze. That's difficult to do when mages are alive, so I'm trying to kill as many as possible with spawn sinking. I'm not really sure why I ran down here, maybe I got scared of the Knight or something. My mage killing hasn't been going well, and I'm running low on time, but there's still too many mages alive to make it around the maze safely. I got a little too hasty there, and I ran into a mage before my sword was fully drawn, so I died. It's really unfortunate to die twice this early on. The healing potion you get in stage 3 acts as a temporary extra life, which lasts until stage 17, where you're forced to replace it with a different potion. That means if you die once before stage 17, you effectively haven't lost any lives. But if you die twice before stage 17, that's 1 less life to get through the rest of the game with. So right now I'm less than a third of the way through the game, and I can only die 2 more times. If I die 3 times, it's game over. The mage killing went a lot better this time. I didn't manage to kill all of them, but I got all but 1, which makes it fairly safe to travel through the maze as long as I don't get into an awkward position with the Knight. We've revealed the treasure now, but unfortunately the Knight is hanging around down there, so I have to be careful about how I deal with that. I was expecting to have to fight the Knight there, but it just passed through me and ran away. Floor 17 is normally pretty easy. Fortunately in this 1cc run, I got footage of how it can go catastrophically wrong. The treasure reveal condition is to allow the mage ghost to teleport 5 times, and normally that just happens automatically as they're making their way across the stage to you. but if they spawn very close to you, then they might not get the required teleports in before they get stuck in your little 2-tile area. That leads to a situation like this, where you have to run around the stage trying to get them to teleport more, while druids start spawning and shooting at you. Once you manage to get the required teleports, you can kill the mage ghosts, get the treasure, kill the druids, and then the stage is pretty straightforward from there. I finally got the treasure to appear. It's a lockpick potion, whose only purpose is to allow you to unlock a treasure chest on a later stage, in this case the next stage. After getting past stage 17, you can have a maximum of 3 spare gills, and I have 2. So I'm only down 1 life, which is not too bad, but it's not ideal. I haven't really talked about the druid ghost yet. Although they have the same behavior pattern as the mage ghosts, because they shoot spells that break down walls, they tend to behave really differently in practice. They usually end up settling down in one particular row or column, often one of the ones by the outer wall, and just move back and forth there. You can pick them off from the side, or if they're not in the way, you can just ignore them. The treasure here is a new sword, and unlike the earlier sword upgrade, it actually does significantly more damage. You'll probably reveal it without even trying, because the condition is just to avoid touching the outer walls for a certain amount of time. This is the first floor where you have to fight multiple wizards at once. Even by the time I was good enough to start doing serious 1cc attempts, I would often lose my credit on this floor. When fighting mages, it's safest to fight them in an area where you can only be attacked from one direction. But when you're fighting a group of wizards, you can always be attacked from 2 or more directions because their spells go through walls. This means the best place to fight wizards is against a wall or in a corner because you can't be attacked from behind. Corners are slightly better because the wizards are more likely to spawn close to you so you can kill them. You can still be attacked from the side when fighting wizards against a wall or corner, but as long as you stand directly in the center of a half tile, the spells coming from the side will miss you. You have to be precise though. If your position is a little bit off center, you'll get hit and die. The other thing that makes this floor difficult is that the treasure reveal condition is to get the key, open the door, and then wait a few seconds. If the door is far away from your start point where the treasure spawns, this can be very time consuming. To make matters worse, you only have one safe use of the pickaxe before you get the treasure. On this next floor, the treasure isn't useful, so all you need to worry about is the enemies. There are 3 druids here. Druids are interesting because they can break walls, so if you try to fight them by spawn sinking in a dead end like mages, they might break open the dead end and force you to move to a new position. I actually prefer to fight them in a corner like wizards, but because I spawn near the center, I'm using a wall. Black knights on their own aren't threatening now that I've got the upgraded sword, but they are threatening when there are wizard style enemies around, so it's fortunate that one turned away from me. There's only 1 druid left now, so I can move through the maze a little more freely. It took me around 2 weeks to get the 1cc, and I was playing this game pretty much every day, sometimes for several hours a day. Once it sinks its claws into you, it's impossible to resist the allure of the tower. What I did there is kind of a weird way of dealing with the druid ghost, but as long as there are no wizard style enemies around, it's pretty safe to do it that way. Alright, floor 21. In a game with a lot of randomness and a lot of ways to mitigate that randomness, this is one of the few floors that really just feels like a test your luck moment sometimes. However, on this attempt, something awakened in me, and I became a will-o-wisp dodging god for a few seconds. So maybe it's actually possible to get consistent at this floor if you practice enough. Unfortunately, after all those amazing dodges, I missed time trying to kill a wizard ghost and died. What makes this floor really mean is that to get the treasure, which makes you immune to the will-o-wisps, you have to stand perfectly still for a certain amount of time. Fortunately, I got the treasure on my previous attempt, so I don't need to worry about the will-o-wisp anymore. I can just deal with the other enemies and head for the exit. You'll notice that I often pause before entering the door at the end of the level. That's not for any gameplay reason, I'm just mentally confirming that I got the treasure and that I'm not screwing up my run. This floor is normally pretty easy, the treasure can be ignored, and the enemies here aren't that strong, but a lot of enemies ended up crowding around the key and actually made it a little bit scary. Dragons can sometimes break down walls, and that one almost caught me off guard and killed me. I also had a really lucky close call just there with that sorcerer. That's an example of why it's a bad idea to fight enemies in the open when wizard-style enemies are still alive. Overall, that was an extremely sketchy floor 22, but we made it out without losing a life. On this next floor, the wizards are back. Part of the reason I have such a slow Druaga playstyle is probably because I wait too long to spawn sync the wizard-style enemies. But if you don't wait long enough, then one of the spawns might be desynced, and that leads to situations where you kill one wizard and another one spawns in front of you and shoots you. I've had that happen to me far too many times, and that's what resulted in my slow turtle style. The reveal condition this time is to take out all the wizards before attacking any other enemies, which you'll probably want to do anyways. I didn't have space to talk about this in the commentary, but the treasure on floor 19 actually prevents floors 20 to 23 from being dark, which prevents you from seeing the walls. The treasure on this floor does the same thing for the rest of the entire tower. If you forget to collect it, then the rest of the tower will be dark. Once you kill the wizards, the rest of this floor isn't that bad, although you do have to be cautious around the blue slime so they don't shoot you. Floor 24 is tricky because it pulls your attention in two directions. To reveal the treasure, you just have to swing your sword while in the starting position. But as soon as the stage starts, mage ghosts are going to start making their way for you and attacking you. There are also 4 mages you have to deal with after killing the ghosts. Sometimes in the initial chaos, I would forget which square exactly I started on, and I'd have to use trial and error to reveal the treasure. Another tricky aspect is you have to make sure you don't waste or even break your pickaxe while swinging your sword in the starting position. Sometimes you start facing the bottom outer wall, so if you just immediately swing your sword, you'll break your pickaxe. You also have to be pretty precise about how you overlap the starting position. If you're a few pixels off, it won't work. The trick to dealing with both of these issues is to start swinging your sword in another position and then move into the starting position before the swinging animation completes. That will count as swinging your sword in the starting position and reveal the treasure. The way Druaga pulls your attention in so many directions is an aspect of it I find really interesting. It's not just the memorization aspect of remembering how to get the treasure on the floor, what the treasure is, and whether you need it. You also have the action element of avoiding enemies and reacting to them and killing them with careful timing. The enemies themselves are pretty varied, with some of them forcing you to stay in certain positions and others forcing you to move when they get close. There's also a big element of gambling, or pressing your luck. Most of the enemies have random elements to them, and you can't take them out safely without being patient. But you're on a timer, so waiting till you get good, safe patterns isn't always an option. You'll often end up making the decision to run through the maze with dangerous enemies still alive, or to kill something in a slightly unsafe way. Here I'm playing it pretty safe around these 4 druids. The treasure reveal method requires me to leave at least one alive before I get the key, but I'm trying to kill 3 before I go for it. Aside from being required to actually beat the game, the treasure here is pretty useful. It increases your sword swinging speed, which lets you break down walls faster, and generally makes you a little bit safer. I finally took out all but 1 druid, but I don't want to waste my pickaxe, so I wait around here for the druid to break a wall for me. Once I get the key, the treasure spawns, and I can go back to my starting point to get it, and then I can finally get out of here. It's also safe to kill the last druid after you've got the key and spawned the treasure. I ended up running the timer red, but this floor isn't too bad once you're used to fighting the druids. This floor is very easy because of the item we got earlier that makes us invulnerable to the blue will-o-wisps. By overlapping the blue will-o-wisps, I can reveal the treasure, a very useful item that makes me invulnerable to the flames of sorcerers. There are knights running around this floor, but our gear is strong enough that they're all easy to deal with at this point. This floor introduces the dark green slimes, which move very quickly and shoot wizard spells, the kind that go through walls. For a while I didn't really take them seriously, because it's fairly rare to actually be killed by them. But after losing a good run to a dark green slime spell coming at me from off screen, I became very paranoid of them, as you'll see here. The treasure reveal method for this floor is to stand still on the door with your sword drawn without having the key. But because there are dark green slimes surrounding the door, I'm kind of unsure how to approach it. I ended up taking a route across the bottom of the screen using my pickaxe. It might have actually been good to leave that druid ghost alive for a little longer, so it would have broken walls for me. The reason I'm moving a bit weird here is to take advantage of the fact that when my sword is drawn, I can block spells from the side using my shield. I eventually managed to figure out a way to get in. I almost grabbed the key by accident, which would have been devastating. I often forget the treasure reveal method for this floor, and grab the key without thinking about it. If you miss the treasure on this floor, which I've done before, you can't see doors for the rest of the tower. Floor 29 is a big one. First you gotta take out some wizard ghosts, and then you spin your arcade stick, or arrow keys, 3 times in a circle, and you reveal the gold pickaxe. This pickaxe can be used 255 times on each floor, which is effectively infinite, but it'll still break instantly if you accidentally use it against one of the outer walls. I had a bit of trouble with one of these wizard ghosts who decided to hang around at the top instead of coming after me, but after killing it, I can spin around in circles and obtain my prize. I have no idea why I walked around the top like this, instead of just breaking the wall to my right, but now you can see the gold pickaxe in action. Floor 30 has an interesting treasure reveal method. You have to sort of walk in circles that pass through one of 2 specific points on the map. This is our first time encountering sorcerers since getting the red necklace, which lets us pass through their flames, although we're still vulnerable to their spells, and will still die if you walk directly into a sorcerer. Still, this makes them a lot easier to deal with. I didn't get to talk about ropers, the tentacle monsters, when they first appeared. Like knights and dragons, they drain your HP when you pass through them. But if you pass through them without having your sword drawn, they won't actually kill you. They'll just drain your HP down to 1 and stop there. So as long as you don't pull your sword out, you can walk through them as much as you want. And usually this is a better strategy than trying to fight them with the sword. As soon as this floor starts, mash the Player 1 Start button on your Druaga arcade cabinet, and you'll get the treasure, the pearl. This item freezes dragons in place when you get close to them, which is very useful. Unfortunately, after getting the pearl, you have to deal with 4 wizards on this floor. There's a story, possibly apocryphal, that before the treasure reveal method on this floor was understood, the treasure would appear on some Druaga cabinets, but not others, and nobody understood why. The difference was that some cabinets had the start button located on the lower front of the cabinet, so players would accidentally hit it with their knee. I wish there were more details about how certain treasure reveal methods were discovered, but because it was such a distributed effort, and I don't think the internet was widely available back in 1984, it's probably something that's really hard to document. Floor 32 is on the easier side, with the only real threats being dark green slimes. They are scary of course, but it's not as bad as a wizard floor. The treasure reveal method is to swing your sword twice in quick succession. So you have to swing it, and as soon as Gil puts it away, you have to swing it again. The timing is a bit tricky. You can either just mash until you get it, or you can watch Gil's animations and try to time it. Once you get the treasure, it's just a matter of being careful around the dark green slimes and making your way to the exit. I think I'm going to start running out of things to say about these floors pretty soon, so I better prepare some cool Druaga facts to get through the rest of this commentary. Cool Druaga fact number 1. The Tower of Druaga was originally going to have 256 floors, but that was too many, so they gave it 60 floors after the tallest building in Japan at the time, the Sunshine 60 skyscraper. As you can see, this floor starts out with some ghosts coming after you. Take them out, and then also take out the single mage, and then everything else is pretty easy. The treasure reveal method is to pass through the silver dragon. Thanks to the pearl, passing through dragons isn't very dangerous anymore. This floor has 2 mirror knights and a wizard. Fighting the mirror knights while the wizard is still alive is dangerous, but if you can kill the wizard quickly, then the rest of the floor is a breeze. Cool Druaga fact number 2. The first person to clear the Tower of Druaga was a Waseda University student named Hideto Furuta. He first played the game in a location test and became obsessed with it. Later on, he actually worked on The Return of Ishtar, another game in the Druaga series, where he was in charge of placing the monsters. This is another pretty easy floor. You don't need the treasure. You just need to take out 2 druids and watch out for the dark green slimes as you make your way to the exit. Cool Druaga fact number 3. There's a hidden continue feature. After you game over, insert another coin, and then hold down the sword button as you press the start button. You'll be able to select any floor that you reached on your previous credit. When you continue, you initially start with 0 points, but as soon as you clear a floor, you get a massive point bonus, equivalent to clearing all previous floors with the maximum time bonus of 20,000. This means you can actually get much higher scores by continuing than by clearing the game on 1 credit. When asked why the scoring works this way, designer Masanobu Endo said that he never expected people to clear the game on 1 coin. On this floor there are 4 sorcerers, and now that you can walk through their flames, they're not so bad to deal with. Walking through their flames is actually the treasure reveal condition for this floor, so you have to make sure to walk through a flame before you kill all the sorcerers. You may have noticed that there's been a string of floors that are kind of easy. The next floor is easy too, but floor 38 is a bit difficult. Cool Druaga fact number 4. The layouts of the mazes are not stored as map data. Instead, they're pseudo-randomly generated using the floor number as a random seed. The reveal condition for this floor is to kill the 2 druid ghosts and then pass through a red roper. I don't actually know the difference between the different colors of ropers. I assume the red ones have more HP than the green ones or something like that, or maybe they damage you faster. But because of the property that if you don't have your sword drawn they can't kill you, you deal with all the different colors of ropers in kind of the same way. The treasure on this floor is the Hyper Helmet. In addition to being required to fight Druaga like all the other equipment upgrades, it doubles your HP, which is very useful when fighting knights. Now we got another wizard floor, but to make matters worse, the treasure reveal condition is to block a wizard spell with your sword drawn, which requires some setup to do safely. I also took an unfortunate death there. I started in the middle of the screen, so I had to get to a wall or corner for safety, but a wizard shot me directly from behind and I didn't react quickly enough. You'll notice I now have 0 spare lives, which means I need to complete the entire rest of the game up to floor 60 without dying. Needless to say, I wasn't expecting to get the 1cc on this run. There's a lot of difficult floors coming up, some of which require good luck to get past safely. But the thing about Druaga is, if you want the 1cc, you can only die a total of 3 or 4 times across the entire game. So by the time you're at the level where you have a serious chance of getting the 1cc, you're capable of clearing large swaths of the game, like 15 to 25 floors at once, without dying. So, I wasn't completely out of the count yet, but it was looking pretty bad. I had to pause and think for a very long time about the correct way to orient myself to safely block spells with my shield from 2 different directions. But I later figured out that the trick is to go in a counterclockwise direction around the maze, as discussed on the right. On this floor, you have to enter a specific button combination, up twice and down 5 times, to reveal the treasure, which is a red ring that protects you from the red will-o-wisps. Unfortunately, you lose your immunity to the blue will-o-wisp when you get this, which will become relevant a few floors from now. This floor is pretty easy as long as you manage to enter the button combo before any enemies get to you. Starting with floor 40, there's a series of 4 floors where you don't need to worry about getting the treasure. The first of these is easy, as the only real threat is 2 mages. It's honestly not that dangerous to just ignore them and run around the maze. With my safety first playstyle, I usually try to take them out. There's also some lizard men, a knight style enemy that does double damage compared to other knights, and is fairly strong. It's risky to fight them if you don't have to, but they move slowly, so it's not hard to just wait for them to get out of the way, or get around them with the pickaxe. All in all, it's a pretty easy floor. The next floor, of course, has 4 wizards. By the time you can make it to floor 41 on 1 credit, you'll probably only be pretty good at fighting wizards, but these floors are still stressful, especially when you're on your last life. The previous floor's treasure was the death potion, which causes your timer to tick down extremely fast. This floor's treasure is the cure potion, whose only purpose is to reverse the effects of the death potion if you collected it. So obviously you can just ignore both of them completely and it makes your life much easier. It might be interesting though to see a run of the game that collects every single treasure. I don't think any of the harmful treasures actually stop you from being in the game, they just have temporary negative effects. You can probably come up with a lot of interesting challenge runs to try in this game, but I don't think I'll be doing any. As much as I like Druaga, I don't think I have it in me to make it even more difficult to complete. This floor is brutal, and probably the scariest floor in the game in a 1cc context. Earlier we got the red ring, which made us immune to red will-o-wisps, but actually removed our earlier immunity to blue will-o-wisps. So those fast moving blue orbs will kill us in 1 hit, and some of these can spawn very close to your starting point. On top of that, there are 2 wizard ghosts that come for you immediately as soon as the stage starts. I knew going into that floor that there was a good chance it would end my run. Fortunately, I managed to get through it quickly. Fortunately, the next floor is pretty easy and cute. It has 1 of every type of slime, including the brand new dark yellow slime. These slimes behave similarly to dark green slimes, but they can shoot any kind of spell instead of only shooting wizard spells. That actually makes them less dangerous than the dark green slimes though, because wizard spells are the worst kind. Now we're back to floors where you actually have to get the treasure, and the next 2 are a pain. On this floor, there's 1 of each type of wizard style enemy, and you have to kill them in a specific order. Because they spawn in random positions, and can spawn on top of each other sometimes, it can take a while to get the kills in the right order if you get unlucky. I prefer to use a wall instead of a corner for this, to reduce the chance of them spawning on top of each other. But what makes this floor really annoying is actually the red knights wandering around. I got pretty lucky with them this time, but if the red knights decide to come after you, you'll probably have to move to a new spawn setting position. They might even keep chasing you and force you to move across the map multiple times and get yourself in dangerous situations. As long as the red knights stay away from you though, this floor is pretty similar to any other wizard floor, and just requires a lot of patience. This is one of the floors I was worried about losing my credit on, but because the red knights left me alone, I didn't have too bad of a time with it. However, I did take a long time to get the treasure revealed, and ended up running the timer red. Fortunately, none of the blue will-o-wisps got in my way. The timer actually got low enough that one of the fast blue will-o-wisps spawned, so I'm very lucky that it didn't spawn near me. Floor 45 can also be a painful one. There are 6 knights on the floor, and you have to kill 5 of them in a very specific order. You'll notice a treasure chest spawns as soon as you start, but it's actually dangerous to collect it. You have to make another treasure chest spawn by killing the knights in a certain order, get that one, and then get the original treasure chest. Knights generally aren't as difficult to deal with as wizard-style enemies, but there are 2 things that can make this floor painful. One is that the knights sometimes overlap each other, and you have to follow them around and wait a while for them to separate. The other is that sometimes a knight will chase you down and corner you before you get to the point in the order where you're supposed to kill it. You have to be very careful, because touching a knight without your sword drawn will kill you instantly, but having your sword drawn will damage the knight and potentially kill it at the wrong time. Once you kill the knights, you have to also be careful that you collect the 2 treasure chests in the correct order. Get the one at your starting point first, and get the one that spawned when the level started second. Floor 45 went pretty well for me this time, but I've actually had a credit before where I got here with 2 lives left, and I lost both of them and game overed. Making it past this level was a huge relief, but I still wasn't confident that I'd get a 1cc, because there are 2 more tricky will-o-wisp dodging levels coming up, plus the final fight with Druaga where I can lose it all. On this floor, the treasure is a necklace that protects you from the fire breath of dragons. That sounds pretty useful, but it's actually pretty rare to get hit by the fire breath of dragons, and it takes a really long time to get the treasure. To get it, you have to touch one of the outer walls, then touch all 4 corners of the map, and then return to the original point where you first touched the outer wall. Sometimes I skip this treasure just because it's annoying to get and it's not that useful, but I managed to deal with most of the enemies, so I decided to go for it this time. Cool Druaga Fact number 5, I think. The reason there's no treasure on the 25th floor is because the code name of Druaga when it was in development was V25. Anyways, after all that work, I forgot where I first touched the outer wall, and my time was getting low, so I decided to just go for the exit. Floor 47 is another one of the dreaded will-o-wisp floors, but it's a bit less mean than the others because there are only 2 will-o-wisps, so the chance of one spawning right beside you and killing you is less likely. The maze is also fairly sectioned off, so you can usually observe the will-o-wisps from a distance and make a plan. Here both of the blue will-o-wisps spawned in the right section of the maze, so I could just observe them for a while. When I saw them starting to leave the right section of the maze, I could break a wall down and head for the exit safely. At this point, my run was on good pace to make it to floor 54, my previous personal best, as long as I didn't screw up any of the wizard floors along the way. Not that this floor is completely free. It's got those dark green slimes that can snipe you from off screen, and a treasure reveal method that's very similar to the long-winded one on floor 46. The only difference is that you don't need to return to the place where you originally touched the outer wall, you just need to touch all 4 corners, and that's good enough. When traversing the maze on this floor, it's helpful to go around the 4 corners in a counterclockwise order, because when you're walking counterclockwise around the maze with your sword out, your shield faces the inside of the maze, which helps with blocking stray shots from green slimes. Because I'm on my last life here, I'm pretty careful around the dark green slimes, and try to find safe angles to approach them from, and to kill them rather than just leaving them alone, to prevent them from sniping me from off screen. This ends up once again running the timer into the red though. I don't know why I walked back to the left here. I must have thought I forgot to touch the corner. I was pretty on edge at this point, being this late into the game. I finally revealed the treasure, and once again got lucky with the spawn position of the fast blue will-o-wisp. I think my slow and careful Druaga playstyle means I probably take less deaths from enemies, but it also means that I run the timer out a lot more frequently and put myself in danger of the will-o-wisps. It's an interesting trade-off to think about. This is another wizard killing floor. You get good at these and you get pretty consistent at them with practice, but it's still terrifying to do one on your last life. Especially when the lizard men come after you and you have to do some weird nonsense like this. I'm really lucky I didn't get sniped. For all the ways you can mitigate the effects of luck or get more consistent, Druaga is still a very random game, and for every cheap, unfair death you experience, you probably also experience a million lucky close calls. Such is the nature of the tower. I'm once again being chased around by knights, but fortunately, there's only one wizard left, so it's a bit safer to run around the maze. I'm also once again running low on time, so I'm just going to try to get the key and get out of here. The treasure here is a bit of a prank. It's a harmful energy drain potion, but you can only get it if you get the lockpick potion on an earlier floor. I didn't really engage with the secret hunting aspect of the game. The treasure reveal methods, as well as the way the treasures interact with each other, just feel too obscure for one person to figure out on their own to me. I just looked everything up in a guide, and I think that's how most people would engage with this game these days. But it's interesting to think about things like the Floor 49 treasure, and how that would have played out for the community of players trying to solve this game back in the 80s. Anyways, this floor has 2 wizards, a downgrade from the previous floor's 3, and a potion that's not very useful, so you can just ignore it, kill the wizards, and get to the exit. We're on the home stretch, the last 10 floors. This is an easy one, with a very silly treasure reveal method. You have to walk in one direction for 9 to 10 seconds. The safest way to do that is to just walk into a dead end where the sorcerers on this floor can't shoot you. So you're pretty much always going to start this floor by walking into a wall for a while. After that, kill the sorcerers, or just avoid them while you make your way through the maze, and this floor is pretty easy. The treasure on this floor is called a balance. These appear multiple times throughout the game, and if you don't collect them, then the next equipment upgrade you get will be evil equipment that harms you. If you have any of the evil equipment, you can't beat the game. On this floor you get the Hyper Armor, a very useful upgrade that lets you take one hit from a magic spell without dying. The reveal condition is to break down 4 walls with your pickaxe. I prefer to take out some of the enemies, particularly the Mage Ghost and the Druids, before I start breaking the walls for safety reasons. It's technically possible to reveal this treasure with the silver pickaxe because it can be used a random number of times between 2 and 4. If you happen to roll 4 times, you can get the treasure on this floor. That means the gold pickaxe is technically not required to beat the game, but doing it with the silver pickaxe would be a huge pain because it would add a mandatory luck check near the very end of a long run. Once you take out the Mage Ghosts and Druids, all you really need to worry about is being sniped by one of those dark green slimes. You don't have to take out all the Druids before you start breaking down walls, but it makes things marginally safer so you can't get sniped while you have your sword out. Floor 53 is an easy floor that only has knights on it. The only difficult part is remembering the weirdly specific treasure reveal condition, which is to break a specific wall and walk downwards from one tile to another. Here I thought I'd found the right position, but I actually got mixed up with a similar structure elsewhere in the level. After a bit of flailing around though, I managed to find the right spot and reveal the treasure. The treasure here is involved with another late game prank. It can be used to unlock a treasure box that contains an extremely useful item, or it can be used to unlock a different treasure box that turns out to be completely empty. We're now at floor 54, my previous best before getting this run. It's another Will-O-Wisp hell floor, but this time, the treasure is a ring that protects you from both kinds of Will-O-Wisp. Fortunately, I got lucky with both my spawn position and the Will-O-Wisp spawn position, and I was able to get the treasure very quickly. As with the other Will-O-Wisp floors though, if you get a bad spawn position, or if the Will-O-Wisp spawn in bad position, this floor can go very bad very fast. But I made it through, and I was on to at least a new personal best, if not a 1cc run. Of course, the next floor is a 5 wizard floor, the largest number of wizards on any floor so far. Of course, dealing with 5 wizards isn't really that different from dealing with 4 wizards or 3 wizards, but I don't think I need to explain how scary it is to do a floor like this on a 1cc pace run on your last life. I'm once again very fortunate that the wandering lizardmen decided to leave me alone while I fought the wizards. If they spawned closer or wandered down my section of the maze, this could have gone really badly. Cool Druaga Fact number 6. When asked where the wizards go and what they're doing when they teleport off the screen, designer Masanobu Endo said, "Haha, I never thought of that." Anyways, the wizards are dead now, so we can get out of here and move on to floor 56. This floor has a little prank I mentioned earlier. If you skip the blue ring on floor 54, the one that makes you immune to both kinds of Will-O-Wisps, then you can use your lockpick potion on the chest here, but it turns out that the chest here is empty. There's one wizard on this floor, a huge downgrade from the previous floor, and once you take it out, there's nothing else you really need to worry about. Floor 57 is an interesting one. If you know what to do, the only real threat is forgetting that there are druids on this floor. But I wonder what it was like to figure out this puzzle for the first time. You don't see it on the screen, but somewhere in the maze, there's a little rock with a tiara on it. That's supposed to represent the maiden Kai who was turned into stone by Druaga. However, this rock is actually an evil succubus. When you touch the door, it transforms from a rock into a vision of the goddess Ishtar. Part of the treasure reveal condition is to stab the transformed succubus, the other part being killing a lizard. The treasure is the ruby mace, which is required to reach the final confrontation with Druaga on floor 59. We got one more relatively easy floor before the big finale. I was pretty tense at this point because floor 59 is not easy. This floor, on the other hand, is just a matter of remembering which specific column you have to walk down to trigger the treasure, and being patient around the lizard men and red knights. I knew at this point that there was a very real possibility I might 1cc the game, but there's also a very real possibility I might die on floor 59 and just end up with a new personal best, one floor away from the end. As soon as this floor starts, rush for a corner or wall to safely take out the 2 wizards. It's best to make your way to a corner if you can, because you want to be in a corner for the next step. There's one Hyper Knight in the maze that is faster than the other 2. You want to lure it to a corner and kill it. The reason it's good to fight the wizards in a corner is in case the Hyper Knight finds you while you're trying to fight the wizards. Killing the Hyper Knight in a corner places you in an optimal position for the next phase, the Special Wizard. It's a single wizard that splits into 4, and only one of the 4 is real and can be damaged. I got lucky and managed to pick off the real one on the first try here. Killing the slow Hyper Knights isn't necessary, but Hyper Knights give you a big HP boost when you kill them. The next step is to kill the dragon that spawns somewhere in the maze. After that, Druaga will appear. Keep your sword held out, because touching Druaga without your sword out is instant death. Point your shield in Druaga's direction to block his spells as he moves closer to you. It's best to wait for Druaga to come to you rather than chasing him down. Once you kill Druaga, it's all over. As long as you know what to do on floor 60, the rest of the game is just a victory lap. Cool Druaga Fact number 7. I said earlier that every floor uses the floor number as a random seed to generate the maze. The exception is floor 60, which uses the number 255, a special seed that happens to generate a completely regular pattern. The goal of this floor is to save the goddess Ishtar, save the maiden Kai, and to place the green, red, and blue crystal rods. If you use your sword against Ishtar or Kai, or if you break any walls of the maze, you will be zapped, which means you get sent to a lower floor and lose a ton of your items, making it impossible to complete the game from that point. Speaking of completing a game, we did it. We cleared Tower of Druaga in 1 credit. I played the Tower of Druaga mostly out of historical interest, and I ended up being completely captivated by it. I think if you just credit feed to the end using a guide, which is actually a fairly difficult task because of all the information you need to keep track of, you won't really get a good sense of its interesting nuances as an action game. But I don't know if I'd recommend going as far as trying to 1cc it. It's an extremely strict 1cc with a lot of random elements that force you to go beyond just learning how to play the game well, and into the realm of practicing and developing consistency. Maybe a good intermediate goal would be to learn the game well enough that you can complete it without looking at a guide while you play. I often had a guide open beside me when I was practicing, but I played this 1cc with nothing but the game screen and my memory, and it was really satisfying to prove to myself that I've committed the entire tower to heart. I'll see you again in another time, in another world.